Testing 1, 2. Checking audio for Cat's broadcast. Test 1, 2.
Good afternoon, everyone. We will come out of recess from our last meeting of the election board here in a moment. That's the bell. I just wanted to give member Benkart a moment to check with council if they're available to county council, county legal, if they're able to join us today. So we'll just give it one moment. We'll pull it out of recess. Thank you. All right. No, thanks. All right. So with members present, we will pull the meeting out of recess from last week. I would just ask for the record that we'll go ahead and take roll just to make sure we have on the record who's here today for this part of our meeting. Can we take the roll, please?
Clerk Brown,
Here.
President Henry,
Present.
Board Member Bankart. Present.
Thank you. So we are coming out of recess from our meeting last week. We had left off in what would have been new business with the item of the candidate one form filed by Mr. Joseph Davis, who is filing a challenge to the decision making of the election board staff on the certification of signatures for the office of Bloomington mayor as an independent candidate. We do have a deadline in our election calendar coming up of next week to close the potential nominations or candidacies of individuals. And so we wanted to give the opportunity for Mr. Davis to clarify the filing that he had made. I should note that this is not a hearing on that matter. We didn't vote to hold a hearing on it. We're just still trying to understand the nature of the submission and what's being asked of us. And I also would just cite for the record too that we did have a hand-delivered letter that I believe got to you to be here present today from Clerk Brown. And so I'm glad I see you in the audience there, Joseph. And so from that, I mean, I before we get going, I just want to open it up to the board's discussion on how we ought to proceed here this afternoon. Are there any initial comments or concerns or questions before we ask Mr. Davis to the podium?
I didn't know if the board would like to see a time limit imposed. I have no place to be, but I imagine that the both of you do. So I'll propose 15 minutes unless we need to extend it.
I second that.
Okay. Good. So there's a motion to set Mr. Davis's presentation to 15 minutes, a little longer than public comment. And there's a second. And we'll go ahead and take a vote on that. If Ms. Martin call the roll.
Board Member Bankart. Aye. President Henry,
Yes.
Clerk Brown.
Yes.
Okay. Motion carries. We will set a time period of 15 minutes, no longer than 15 minutes for Mr. Davis to make his presentation. I really think that's it. I think we're ready for that. So Mr. Davis, if you'd like to approach the podium, make sure you do give us your first and last name for the record and walk us through your candidate one form and what you're asking of the board to do in consideration of your request. Thank you. I guess for just a point of clarification, can someone keep time on that? Because I don't, yeah, okay, thank you. It looks like TSD got it. Thank you, appreciate it. Well, they haven't started the time yet, right? Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Davis, Joseph Bradley Davis, and I wish to state right off, thank you very much for taking the time to allow me to come in and make a presentation to more formally, I guess, identify what I'm hoping to achieve through this meeting. I as well have a witness who I would like to be able to come up and present. And I would like to ask that if our time, if the 15 minutes that have been allotted toward me become too compressed, I would ask that it might be possible for my witness to be able to have additional time to speak on my behalf.
We'll see where we are in 15 minutes. We could make a motion to extend or to offer time. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. The reason I've come, the reason I've come here before you today is the seeking of a just and fair interpretation of the signatures that I have turned in through my petitions. There for sure is an issue where voter registrations in their validation create a point of pending status and a limbo-ness that is disenfranchising my supporters in their quest to be able to put the candidate of their choice on the ballot. Part of the problem that I, as an independent candidate, have been facing throughout this election season is that there are numerous ways in which voter registrations are being kept from being processed and married with the signatures on the petitions that already have been submitted and were submitted throughout this spring period into June 30th, when the deadline to turn those signatures in took place. So not only are there, not only are there windows in which no voter registration can be processed, for example, during the early voting time, and then two, up until in this final week that I had before the 30th to submit petitions and voter registrations, there was absolutely no way for the voter registration to be able to move through the process in order for my petition signature to count. Now, it's been stated that the voter registration becomes valid when the postcard is mailed out. Should that postcard not be returned, then that voter registration becomes for sure completely valid. However, upon the date that that voter registration is sent out, it's only if it comes back as undeliverable that that voter registration is nullified. Otherwise, the assumption is that once it goes out, that voter registration is complete in the eyes of the person who filled out the voter registration in order to be able to participate in our democracy. Many, many people during the period that I've been collecting signatures have expressed that there are too many barriers to third-party candidates to get on the ballot. I feel that this is genuinely true. The people want to have more choices, but it appears as if the quoted election laws are really being set forth to keep independent candidates off of the ballot. It seems that this unstated goal has been made apparent through the evaluation of my signatures. For example, I have a voter registration form right here. There is absolutely nowhere on this form that it states that the person registering to vote is in a limbo period for as many as 7, 8, even 9 days, as long as it takes for that first voter registration card to be sent out in the mail. There's nothing on the back that states that that voter registration is inactive. The person who fills this out has the understanding that once it's turned in, their registration is valid. And I point especially to my friend, Rebecca Haviland, who has come here today to present to you her views on the legitimacy of voter registrations, especially for those people who have been the most marginalized in our local community. And what I'm talking about are the people who are the have-nots, who are living in very unstable environments in which today they have a place where they might be staying, but in 6 months, they might be living in a new location. You know, this disenfranchises these people. I had numerous signatures from individuals who use the Shalom 620 South Walnut as their mailing address and as their voter registration address. They have been some of my most vocal supporters in expressing how this is unfair and unjust. Essentially, their voice has been disenfranchised. They are not able to participate. At this time, I would like to bring up Rebecca Haviland so that she can express to you her sentiments on this situation. Thank you.
Mr. Davis, do you have additional presentation to make after Rebecca's?
Yes,
TSD, thank you for stopping clock. Yeah, I just want to make sure we give you your time and Rebecca her time. Do you want her to be included in your time or to speak after you're done with your presentation?
I would like to have additional time provided for Rebecca Haviland, if possible, that wouldn't eat into my 15 minutes, if possible.
Okay.
Would you rather that I continue?
Let me take the pulse of the board.
Okay.
So I would just offer as a point of order that we had allotted Mr. Davis 15 minutes of his time. If he wants to use that to have witnesses or to extend additional time to additional persons today, what's the sense of the board so that we make sure everyone has a chance to speak and respect the time of folks here today?
My impression is you have a closing. Is that where we are? And so you want to be able to close.
Have any idea how long your witness is gonna speak?
4 or 5 minutes.
Then that will leave you 2.5 minutes for your closing. Is your closing about 2.5, 3 minutes?
Is that how much time I have left?
If Ms. Haviland had 5 minutes, then that would leave you about 2.5 minutes to close. Is that or unless we make a different decision.
May I have some additional time?
Let's see where we are, and yeah, we can extend. Let's just see where we are. Thank you for the strategic pause. Just want to be respectful of your time. But yeah, feel free to introduce your witness, and we'll see where we are at the
Okay.
close. Thanks.
At this time, Rebecca Haviland would like to approach. Thank you.
Let's start by apologizing for my appearance. I would have dressed better, but I jogged down here from my second job because I believe in Joe. I believe in his integrity as a human being. He's willing to take time, sit down on the side of the road with me or anyone and take them through the steps to help them to become a registered voter. He is not only that, he shows emotional support. He shows encouragement. He gives reassurance to people. He treats people like they matter. Just because a person is in a rough point in their life does not mean that they deserve to be discriminated. Class discrimination is still too much in this town. They deserve the same medical treatment. Joe shows love. He shows compassion. He's as real as it gets. I'm here to not only support Joe, but I'm also here to speak on behalf of the homeless, the disenfranchised. Many of them find themselves in a rough spot, and they need assistance. They need help. I live in Friend's Place right now. I've been diagnosed with PTSD, and I'm on medication for having a high anxiety panic disorder. I could get an apartment tomorrow if I asked for it, but I'm just a little afraid of living alone right now. But I do what I can to provide support. I volunteer at Shalom. I volunteer at Friend's Place, do what I can. Today, while I was at my first job, Park and Recreation, I ran into a woman down there. She lost her house last night. I sit there and I talk with her. I shared some of my food and drink that I bought from Sunoco. She showed pictures from me on her phone of her daughters. I mean, these are real people. And I try to encourage them, and as Joe has done, try to encourage them to come up to the shelter, reach out for help, because there's people out there they don't even know yet who care for them, who are willing to give them support. I know of two people that work in the shelter. Amanda got released from prison, was in Friend's Place, and then she ended up getting a job. 6 months later, she quit that job to come back to work at Shalom because that's where her heart's at. That's where she got her help at. And then she got raised up to work at Friend's Place. Another guy works at Willer Mission. Same thing, similar story. He was once on the streets. Another house monitor there works at Friend's Place. Used to be a heroin junkie addict out on the streets for 4 years. And then he started volunteering at Shalom. He did it for his son because he doesn't want his family to be ashamed of him anymore. He worked his way up to, they took a chance on him, gave him a job at Shalom, and then eventually worked his way up to being house monitor at Friend's Place. These people, it's not that they have given up, they just need help. I'm one of them. I'm struggling, but I'm trying. A little bit at a time. Joe helped me to get registered as a voter. He has helped others. He's willing to sit down and be patient. That's an act of love, showing empathy toward people, being patient with them, being sharing, giving of your time. I just wrote a little something I wanted to share about where we are at, where my people are at. and how we are feeling, the oppression that we feel. The status quo has got to go that stands in the way of love. When push comes to shove, the only forces that are causing the moral pollution that brings us down are bigotry that reinforces discrimination and prejudice behavior that comes around. As we stand together in revolution to make the haters the casualties of an onslaught of love. The political conservatives, my apologies, of society must step down from their imperial piety, because we, the oppressed, will not give any slack in how we choose to fight back. I'm here speaking for us. We will exhort and exploit any means to fight against those who are mean, who attack. We fight against the civil inequality of their laws until they get the point, until the shot collars of hate are put in the joint. We, the oppressed, will not run like a mouse, but will roar like a lion. Here I am. Because there is a storehouse of knowledge that can be learned through our experience that the goddess of wisdom can bestow upon any of us through our efforts of digging, exploring, and looking beyond the surface of what we opine about to find out the answers in some. We, the oppressed, stand on a just cause for what is right. And the beat of our revolution drum to anoint a righteous savior who is come. The status quo will stand and show, and the haters must abate. It is their faith that love is love that will overcome, because our justice cannot wait. I believe in Joe. Joe helped me to get registered. I carry a voter registration card thanks to his help. He sat down on the side of the road, took his time out of his day, showed love and patience toward me to help me do this. This is something that one of the program monitors put in mind for me to do beforehand, and it just happenstance I ran into Joe and he helped me to accomplish that. Thank you for your time and allowing me to speak in this matter on behalf of Joe and on behalf of the disenfranchised of our community in Bloomington. Thank you.
Yeah, Rebecca, thank you. Could you just state your full name so we have it? I don't think we got it at the front end.
Rebecca Joanne Haviland.
Thank you. I appreciate your words. Joe, that exhausts your time. I would take a motion from the board to extend for just so you can conclude your remarks.
I will make a motion to extend the time by 5 minutes.
Second.
All right. We'll just take a vote there, Sri, Ms. Martin.
Okay, Board Member Benhart,
Yes.
President Henry,
Yes.
Clerk Brown,
Yes.
motion passed.
Mr. Davis, 5 more minutes if you could wrap up the ends. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, it's been stated that the onus should be on me as an aspiring candidate to ensure that my voter registrations or my petition signatures are valid. Well, quite frankly, that's not possible the way it's currently set up. Unless I pay into the Voter Action Network, I have no way to verify that a person's or petition matches a previous voter registration. And if I turn in my petition signatures, they're only looked at once, only once. And if they don't come up with a match, including not even coming up with, I mean, there's no mechanism for even indication of a pending status. It's just if the database has no match at that time, it's gone. This is really unfair to the people who are wishing to have their candidates have access to the ballot. With no feedback mechanism to cure maybe a defect in a voter registration compared to a petition, this essentially is a violation of one's both state and federal civil rights. My friend, William Morris Jr. has already expressed that if necessary, that I file a lawsuit to continue this appeal, he will be assisting me. We've also reached out to the ACLU and the Indiana chapter. And so we are waiting to hear back from them as to whether or not they might be able to lend us some advocacy. So what I would like to happen is I would like the 600 signatures that I collected to be simply run through again following a 8 or 9 day period past the 17th of July, when I have to turn in these petitions, which is this coming Monday. Should there be some voter registrants that have told me that they were going to turn in their voter registration by themselves, which there were many, I want to allow for them to have the maximum opportunity to turn in that registration and for that evaluation process to take place post this pending period in which verification takes place with the voter registrations. That is what I would like to see happen. If that is not the outcome, I, along with my other advocates and supporters, will pursue this in the circuit court such that we can ensure that the disenfranchisement of all of the people who are looking for another third party candidate to be able to get on our local ballot, such that they will not be disenfranchised and therefore even less likely to participate not only in voting in our democracy, but even feeling encouraged to run for office themselves, because this is a complete turnoff to what we all espouse, which is we want everyone to be able to vote. We want democracy. We want to be heard. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. At this point, I would open discussion among the board members on Mr. Davis's petition, the candidate one, and with the other considerations he's given us to consider today. I'll start with Clerk Brown. Do you have initial questions or comments on the candidate petition?
I do. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank
You're
you
welcome.
for your guests. We appreciate your presentations today. I have a couple of questions for you. The first, and I'm not asking you to agree with what I'm about to say, I'm just asking if you're cognizant of this. Are you aware that currently the state of Indiana is not one that offers same-day voter registration?
Apparently that seems to be what I'm being told. I have not, as of this moment, been able to dig into the statutes that might state that. But if that's what the statute states, then this is the opportunity to raise this issue and to change the interpretation of that statute.
And I can tell you, as chair of the legislative committee, that there is not a palette at the legislative level at this time for Indiana to become a state where there is same-day registration. So my second question would be, given that there is no same-day registration in Indiana, would you agree that voter registration staff have to vet the information contained on that voter registration application in the same way you would vet any other information? So for example, making sure that the person who is registering will be 18 years old by the day of general election. Would you agree that that's going to be important to verify that date? Would you agree that we need to make sure that the address that they have put on that application is a valid address? So they're not living at a restaurant if they give the address for McDonald's or something like that. We need time to vet that.
Mhm.
And because it takes time, the more registrations we have, probably the longer it is going to take to get that information verified, vetted, and into the system. Would you agree with those things?
Could you repeat, repeat them all?
Okay,
Since
so
it's a checklist?
it's okay. It's okay. This is your time.
Yeah.
You're clear that there is no same day voter registration in the state of Indiana at this time. That would be a legislative effort. And currently there is not a palette at the legislative level for same day registration in Indiana. Are we on the same page there?
From what I've been looking at in the statute, it looks as if, and I'm not able to specifically quote which statute it is at this time, but I came across something that stated that the registration became valid the moment the postcard was sent out. That became a legal document, and indeed that's what my friend Rebecca does. She uses that voter registration as a legal document if she has to go and prove her residence somewhere, and when she's applying for any kind of program, she uses that for a legal document. And it was her understanding from the date that she first received it in the mail that that was a legal document. And so it might be that there's no same day registration, but this would indicate that there's next day registration because that's when the postcard was sent out.
For that particular,
For,
are
when
you talking about a postcard that would come from my office? And you're saying that less than 24 hours after submitting that, we sent a postcard and said, you are registered in Monroe County, Indiana?
what does your registration card say exactly? Do you have it with you?
Could we trouble you to come up? So just so that we can hear, please and thank you.
Ma'am, I was in a hurry to get to work this morning and to see another lady that came into the shelter to my supervisor, try to get her a job. And I was in a hurry. My voter registration card is in my big purse, and when I go to work, I try to carry light. I'm very sorry I was not able to make it. However, I could get it and present a copy of it here as proof that, that Joe has been a wonderful help to me in accomplishing that end so that I can vote in the next upcoming election.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. And so I don't doubt that you receive a card indicating that you're eligible to vote in the next election.
Mm-hmm.
We can be on the same page with that. Because, for example, if the day before early voting, we have your voter registration in hand, you are eligible to vote in the primary election. Are we still on the same page?
Yes,
Okay.
but I think
So,
that what maybe is not being understood is that people are using that voter registration card that they received in the mail as a legal document immediately upon the date of receipt. They are using that as a proof of where they're registered to receive mail or where they're living.
Okay.
You know, so they're already using that as a legal document. And it's assumed to be legal unless it's returned back to the voter registration office for being undeliverable, is it not?
And again, I want to clarify, you're talking about something that comes from my office, not the Indiana Election Division.
It would be the cards that Laramie sends out, Ms. Wilson sends out, you know, the day following.
Mr.
The-
Davis.
Yes,
It's not same day registration, though.
right, correct.
Just to try to explain it, let's say that a person comes into the office on January 1. We process on January 1. It is mailed out January 2. So now we're on the first day. It doesn't hit the person at their address, maybe up to 5 days later. So that pending period, that letter is in the mail. Does that make more sense?
Well, if a person goes to the post office and it's a local address and they submit it, it's mailed the next day because sometimes it's sent up to Indianapolis, but if it's postmarked and left with the clerk,
I'm going to disagree with you, sir.
Then
That's the
they will
reason
mail-
why
then they
have
will deliver
people
it
do
the
the
next
ballots
day.
for us. That's the reason why we have people pick up our ballots, because it's not same day delivery, nor is it the next day delivery.
So, Ms. Martin, I appreciate the clarification. I just want to make sure we don't devolve into a informal discussion here. But I make sure the board gets questions answered. Thank you for the clarification, Sri. Clerk Brown, did you have additional questions or commentary?
I can be done.
Okay.
Other people want to speak?
Ms. Benkart, do you have questions or comments at this point?
I only have a comment for Mr. Davis. You understand that this board is restricted by state statute. There is only so much this board can do.
Mhm.
And if there is a requirement that there is a timeline that gives the clerk's office time to vet someone's application, it is not going to be the same day. They don't have time to vet it. So we will be required by state statute to follow it and give the timelines that they give us and the clerk's office. I believe that that has already been done. Am I correct? Ms. Wilson or Ms. Okay,
Mhm. Well,
that's all I had.
Thank you, Ms. Benkart. I'm sorry, I just want to make sure. So did you have a question for Mr. Davis or was that just a comment?
It was
It's a
just
misunderstanding.
a comment and an understanding. I also wanted to make note, though, based on Rebecca's testimony, if you want to call it that, her statements, that I looked through the petition that was submitted by you, Mr. Davis, that stated 4/14/23, and there are a total of 6 voters who indicated 620 South Walnut Street as their address, 4 of which were approved and 2 were not. So 620 North Walnut Street is being considered in some way as being a valid address for some people. So therefore, just because it says 620, I'm sorry, I think it's South Walnut Street, doesn't mean that it's not being counted. I believe it's being processed the same as anyone else with a different address.
mhm.
Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Benkart. I have just some clarifications I needed from legal staff here. And Ms. Turner King, if you could, I'm just looking at I think Ms. Benkart had stated it well that this is an election board, not a court. And so, our job is to administer the code as written, not interpret it in a court setting. But my understanding is we are bounded with remedy here, that we don't have the remedy that I think Mr. Davis is seeking. As I understand, and I'm looking at It's maybe just to get it in the record so we have it in the record. So Indiana Code 3-8-6-8, certification of petitioners as eligible to vote. Can you maybe explain what that section is telling us, what our remedies are or are not?
So looking at Indiana Code 3-8-6-8 entitled petition of nomination certification, it reads, for a petition of nomination to be considered valid by the officer required to receive the petition, the county voter registration office in the county where the petition is registered must certify that each petitioner is a voter at the residence address listed in the petition at the time of the petition is processed. So what that means is that when a petition is submitted to county, the voter registration office, they are to verify it as the date of that it's being submitted. So they don't go forward, they don't go backwards. The certification must indicate that each petitioner is eligible to vote for the candidates being nominated by the petition. If a individual is in a pending voter registration status, which is required by Indiana Code 3733-5, they would not be indicated as an active voter status and would not be able to vote.
Because we're not a same day state. So it's a moment in time. The petition is submitted in a moment in time. It's like a pause button is hit to look at the voter reg at that moment in time to figure out the status of that human. In that time period, in theory, a voter could pass away before they clear. They could move while that clears. So there's this moment in time quality, it sounds like, that we have to look at this. It says at the time the petition is being processed. Got it. So as I understand the petitioner's request, that leads us over to IC 36-1-8. I'm sorry, 36-1-3-8, powers that are specifically withheld from certain boards. And as I understand it, and Molly, maybe we can look at section 8A-12, that talks about whether or not an election board can statutorily create a remedy if it's not already on the books. Is that my understanding of this piece? I'm sorry, I know you're flying fast on the
It's
keyboard,
okay.
but
I'm pulling up the IC, so 36
dash
1-3-8.
36-1-3-8. And it's section 8A. And then subsection 12 that talks about the ability of a board to adopt additional procedures. I'm just trying to figure out if there is a remedy available to us, and it doesn't seem like there is.
So in looking at that statute, in essence, the election board would not have the authority to order or use a procedure that is not prescribed by the statute.
And we don't have a procedure prescribed by statute to continuously review signatures through their clearance process.
The statute indicates that the petitions are processed at the time and doesn't provide any other time frame for processing.
Thank you for the clarifications, Ms. Turner King. I only have maybe one or two other comments on the matter, and then we can see if there are motions from the board. I am obviously sensitive to the idea of just and fair elections, and any commentary about the disenfranchisement of voters has, at least from my seat, my attention as a Democratic representative on this board. What I'm stuck with is the remedies that are available to a petitioner seeking ballot access as an independent candidate. And in some ways, we have to separate the conversation a little bit. The voters that have registered are in the pending process and have cleared the process will be eligible to vote in the fall, and they could vote for other candidates. You know, there's nothing about their registration that and their process that as it relates to their enfranchisement to vote this fall. The question that you had posed, Mr. Davis, is whether or not their moment in time, at the moment of petition, it meets the mail for us to consider their signatures and the election board the board staff executing its role under the code to check their status and to either count them or discount them. you'd made a statement about the onus being on you to prove out your signatures, right? And you made a comment about some proprietary software. I think Voter Access Network is the tool used by the Democratic Party. I know the Republicans have their own subscription tool, but as to my understanding, there's nothing that prevents you from going to the Board of Elections and getting this data that was provided back to you about those voters and their status. And so maybe Clerk Brown, for my point of clarification, there is voter data available to a petitioner to review. Okay, so there is that publicly available data. You had mentioned some proprietary softwares that are part of partisan political organizations. So there is an avenue for you to get information from the board. So I just want to make that clarification. I guess what I'm hearing though, and balancing the presentation is that all of what's being questioned are processes under Indiana code that have been passed by the legislature, where Clerk Brown had mentioned the temperature of the legislature on some of these issues. But these are all IC questions about the interpretation of code and not the administration as we have under statute that Ms. Turner King outlined. So my only question for you would be, given that we have constraints and we're not a court, and we can't, we are statutorily limited as to a solution that you're seeking. What is it you're seeking at that point?
I am seeking for my signatures to be rerun post the 17th.
Okay.
And I'm willing to take my lumps if some people have died or if they have moved. I feel that enough of my petition signees will be validated at that point as a registered voter. And so sure, I might lose some people who have passed on or moved away, but I feel like I will gain many more people who were excluded.
And I appreciate that clarity. Ms. Brown, did you had an additional comment or statement?
So.
Clerk Brown, sorry.
It's okay. So I mentioned this last week, but of course you were not here at the regularly scheduled election board meeting. My chief deputy clerk, who is here today, reached out to Brad King at the Indiana Election Division and specifically asked about the relief that you're seeking, the possibility. And so I'm just going to read into the minutes what his response was. He said, "There is no procedure set forth in state law for you to re-examine the registration status of individuals whose voter registration application was pending and not final at the time you examined the petition to determine if that individual was a registered voter. Therefore, under Indiana Code 36-1-3-8A12, as amended in 2023, which is the current year, the county election board does not have the authority to order or use the procedure you describe to process candidate petitions." That is directly from the Republican representative of the Indiana Election Division. So what you literally just shared with the chair would be your request for a remedy we cannot do. Does that make sense?
No, it doesn't make sense.
Okay. Thank you, Clerk Brown, for the clarification from Indiana Election Division. And thank you, Mr. Davis, for your time and your presentation today. I will just say on the record, I empathize with where you're at, in that the code as written makes the hurdle for an independent candidate to seek office different than the party structures that allow ballot access. But I've worked in campaigns a long time before sitting in this chair, and one of the hardest things to do is ballot access by petitioner signature. That's why many campaigns will submit 3 or 4 times the amount of signatures they need, because at that moment in time, qualification under statute to make sure they clear that hurdle. And that is a discussion that is valid under the questions that you raised under Indiana code. But I personally, or at least from my seat, I have a hard time finding a remedy, especially based under the advisement from Indiana Election Division. But I want to thank you for at least coming in and really thoroughly exploring the questions in a public forum. That's where we need to have these discussions in open spaces. So I just want to thank you for that. At this point, I would entertain motions on the candidate one form to either grant or deny the challenge for the candidate filing that has been filed. Are there motions from the board at this time?
I will make the motion to reject the challenge. Is that the word you use? Reject or deny?
That's fine. Yeah.
Based upon the limited parameters in which the board is able to operate.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and second to deny the candidate filing challenge. Ms. Martin, will you call roll, please?
Clerk Brown,
Yes.
President Henry,
Yes.
Chairperson Bangkart,
Yes.
All right.
motion carries.
Thank you for that. And that closes out our business on that item. I think it also closes out our business on the agenda from our recess. And I think we had public comment at the last session. So I think with that, could staff clarify our next meeting? Is it August? What's the date?
Second, I believe.
Yeah, thank you. I always do this.
Did you want to make sure there were no questions
Um,
on the
okay,
August 3rd?
first Thursday. Okay, okay. Yeah, Ms. Clerk Brown reminded me, just to make sure there are no questions and or comment, but we had public comment at the last meeting and we recessed for this question. So we are at the conclusion of this meeting of the board from last Thursday. I make a motion to adjourn to August 2nd, and we'll pick it up on August 2nd. A 33rd, sorry, did it again, August 3rd, yeah. I think I didn't make the motion. Yeah.
Sorry, I make a motion to adjourn this, I make a motion that the meeting be adjourned and we meet again on August 3rd.
I will second the motion.
All right, all those in favor,
Aye.
opposed? All
Oh, excuse me.
Aye.
right, opposed, hearing none. We will be back on August 3rd. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.